We're going to talk some Michigan versus USC. One of the best games maybe that we've seen all season. It's a young season, but one of the best games I think we've witnessed all season. Michigan, they lose at home in front of a lot of recruits. What do you think the recruiting impact of this game is for the Wolverines and for the Trojans, really?
Well, we talked about it, Josh. Look, Michigan took one right on the chin against Texas, but we saw Dan Lanning in Oregon go into Atlanta for Lanning's first game as head coach.
Whew.
Kind of similar to Sharon Moore's first big game as Michigan's true head coach. And they got destroyed by Georgia. And you know what Oregon did? They packed up, got on that airplane, went home and ripped off a bunch of wins and would have made the college football playoff had it been a 12-team playoff. Michigan, tough game against Texas, arguably playing as well as anybody in the country. Them in Tennessee, they lost at home. But they responded well. Got a win against a USC team that's playing really well. And I thought USC's defense played well in this game. I think that USC's turning the corner. They're showing that they're a physical football team that's looking to take another step under Lincoln Riley, Deontin Lynn, and company. So for Michigan to be able to run the ball like they did this year, to get a lead early, lose it, but then respond to that, come back on that last drive of the game, and win the game on 4th down inside the 5-yard line. Khalil Mullins.
Unbelievable.
It just shows the culture of that program hasn't changed. A lot of guys got promoted. They lost a lot of great coaches. They lost a lot of great players. So guys got promoted on the depth chart. Coaches got promoted from within, strength coach, all the way up to that corner office with Sharon Moore. And they came out there and got a big win against Michigan, and everything that the Wolverines have aspired to this season coming into the season is still out there. A Big Ten championship is still out there. The college football playoff is still out there for Michigan. Are they still a work in progress? Yes, but the one thing that they are is tough, physical, and they're going to play hard every week, and there is a lot of pride around that winged helmet and around that football program. And I don't know if USC gets back into that game if Will Johnson doesn't get hurt. So that was a huge injury to have him come off the field. But Michigan responded to that as well, made enough plays to get a huge win, and the recruits on campus absolutely loved it. Sharon Moore and his staff do a good job of really connecting with these recruits. The kids they're players' coaches. Jim Harbaugh was a players' coach. These guys are players, coaches. These guys are playing hard, and the recruits feel it on campus, and it was loud there in the big.
That atmosphere had to be one of the most electric atmospheres. I would have given anything to be on the sidelines of that one. Speaking of being on the sidelines, Michigan had a really important linebacker on campus, Nathaniel AuBuang, who's at IMG Academy, and it's coming down to the end of his recruitment. How important do you think it was for him to be in this environment?
Well, I talked to him after the game. He said the environment was electric. He said his family loved it, and he loves their scheme, how he'll be developed on and off the field. I think that's always an important component with Michigan. When most of their players pick the Wolverines, look, they're making football decisions. They want to hear their names called in the NFL draft, and they want to play for championships. And Michigan's won 3 straight Big Ten championships. They've done as well as just about any program in the NFL draft over the last 5 or 6 years. They're certainly in the top 5 programs of having players drafted. And then Michigan's going to have a need at linebacker next year, so he sees an opportunity to make an early impact. He told me his official visit to Michigan was his best visit at that time. I asked him where Michigan stood after this. He goes, I would just say they keep leaving good impressions every time I'm back in Ann Arbor. Chad Simmons, our colleague, had the report earlier this week. He's going to go back to Notre Dame. That's who they're really battling, Notre Dame. His brother, Jeremiah Owusu, was the Butkus Award winner in South Bend. And when you're strongly considering Michigan and you're strongly considering Notre Dame, you know, those programs have a lot in common. Sometimes Michigan and Notre Dame stick out as a finalist. And so it's an easy decision for a prospect to either go to Michigan or Notre Dame or not, depending on what they're truly into. But when they're head to head, it's a war because those schools both offer a lot of the same things on and off the field that this young man is looking for. But a Notre Dame legacy recruit that knows so much about Marcus Freeman in that program, for Michigan to be here and give him some of the best visits that he's had of the process shows a lot about what it's like for a prospect to go visit Michigan. I talked to another Michigan commit, Kenoa Winston, who's a Penn State. His brother's one of the best players at Penn State. Penn State's got championship aspirations. Kenoa Winston's going to go his own way and go play at Michigan. He said Owusu Boateng was hyped up after the game. He felt like this was the perfect game to come and see what Michigan football is all about. Hard-nosed, gritty football. Let's bring in Hayes Faucett. Hayes, let's talk some Michigan with you, Hayes. You had the edit for Kenoa Winston's recruitment. When I predicted the young man to Michigan, I was surprised I was putting that pick in, because I think when his process started, you figured Penn State, the way that they play defense, they're typically one of the best defenses in the country under Franklin. They limit points. They get a lot of tackles behind the line of scrimmage. They get off the field on third down, a lot of turnovers. But Kenoa Winston's going to Michigan. What do you remember from that recruitment? He's one of the jewels of this Wolverines class.
Yeah, Steve, like you said, Penn State legacy. From my conversations with him, it really was. I mean, Michigan seemed like it was always a school, Penn State was definitely in it. And, whenever he committed, it really did kind of start, I guess, like the most hot Michigan's been on the trail this summer. They landed Jacob Washington from New Orleans shortly after, Julius Holly, Jasper Parker, Donovan Johnson, Caden Strayhorn, guys like that. Michigan has a top 15 class in the 2025 team rankings, and big win at the Big House today against USC. Definitely showing a lot for sure.
And Michigan's class is better than that pound for pound. When you start looking at average ranking per commit, it's a couple spots higher there. Were you around Ivan Taylor's recruitment much too?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
That's one. They flip him from Notre Dame, and now they're battling to keep him again, with Alabama and Notre Dame trying to come back around. But just kind of talk about how you remember Ivan Taylor's commitment playing out to the Wolverines.
Yeah, that's another one that kind of happened in the hot, I guess you can call it the hot streak for Michigan recruiting. I remember moments after that, they landed Olesh, the tight end. But yeah, going back to what you were saying, I just remember being in contact with Ivan. He had actually been kind of trending to Alabama a little bit at the time as well. And, I think he was fresh off of that Alabama visit, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2 weeks out. And yeah, I mean, he just hit me up and, told me he was going to flip to Michigan, and, was very excited about it, and very excited about the trajectory of the program as well. So that's basically all I remember in terms of that recruitment.
Steve, one more prospect I wanted to talk to you about that's on campus in Michigan was Alex Graham, committed to Colorado. He's a four-star cornerback that teams are starting to kick the tires on. This weekend, he was in Ann Arbor. What do you make of Alex Graham's visit to check out the Wolverines?
Well, he's a Detroit native, back home playing his final season at Cass Tech after playing at IMG Academy. USC's kicking tires there. We'll see what this visit truly means, but seeing Will Johnson, who's kind of got legendary status now around Detroit for the career he's having at Michigan. I mean, he's the highest rated player on NCAA. Hayes, is he still the highest rated player on NCAA?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, so that alone gets you the street cred amongst the younger generation. Obviously not my generation, but the younger generation. And so seeing these Will Johnson shine at Michigan and the kind of career he's having there, and certainly probably the kind of money he's making at Michigan, a lot said about Michigan and their NIL on the front end, but they're players. If you go to Michigan and you perform on the field, it is a fruitful place to be if you do a good job like Will Johnson is. So I think that it's hard to sleep on. It's hard to sleep on the Wolverines for in-state prospects that they love it, especially for the way they're playing. especially from Detroit with the way that Will Johnson's playing and what he means to those guys, seeing the success that he's having. And Josh, Michigan hosted some stud offensive linemen in 2026, and Sharon Moore, that's where his heart's at. Zayden Krempen said it was incredible. On 300 offensive linemen from Texas returned. Brett Collegier is one of those IMG Academy kids that said it was one of the best environments he's experienced. He pointed to the culture, talked about how they faced adversity and overcame it. And then Malachi Lee, he's an on 300 offensive tackle from Hawaii. I'm hearing great things about Michigan's position for him. It was his mom's first visit on campus. Sounds like they crushed it with her, so it really sets the bar for Michigan and him moving forward. So I like where the Wolverines stand with him. He's going to take some more visits, but sounds like that was a tone setter in the recruitment of Malachi Lee, who's the number 11 offensive tackle in the country in the 2026 class.
All right, Steve, before we get out of this segment, talk to USC fans here. USC recruiting has been red hot. We've been talking nonstop about the Trojans. They lose this game on the road to Michigan. Put it in context for USC fans. What does this mean for recruiting?
Well, they were resilient. They played hard. You can't win every game. How many teams go undefeated every year in college football? It's very rare. I mean, I thought USC, they should have a lot of pride. I mean, obviously you want to win the game, and they were up late in their defense, who I thought their defense played hard all day. It was a very physical game, and I'm sure they're disappointed that they couldn't get one more stop. If they could get off the field one more time, they win the ball game. But I think that USC is still showing you that this program is on the rise again under Lincoln Riley and the staff, a completely revamped defensive staff with Deonta Lynn, Coach Belk, Coach Entz, Coach Eric Henderson. And look, Miller Moss, that was his first big start at quarterback. And I thought he was resilient and made some throws at the end, and the moment wasn't too big for him, right? It's easy to go out there and make plays against suspect defenses. I mean, he played well against LSU, but everybody knows LSU's got question marks on defense. Michigan, they got torn up against Texas, but that's one game. Like, Michigan's got a really good defense. They got a ferocious defensive line. They got arguably the best defensive back in the country. They got veteran linebackers. And I thought that Miller Moss hung in there and made some plays down the stretch. And so my biggest takeaway on USC today is resiliency. And I think that the recruits have to see that, and they're in on a lot of great players that want to help take this program forward. Defensive line remains a big need for them as they finish off this cycle. They got the spatula out on a couple guys. They want to land Jakeem Stewart. But I don't know how you could walk away from this performance today and say that USC you feel like they're headed the wrong way. They just didn't get a win today on the road in a tough environment, but they certainly could have won that ball game. They were right there with the defending national champs, took them to the brink, and Khalil Mulling scored his second touchdown of the day with 37 seconds left, and they lost.
Yeah. Hey, if I'm a USC fan right now, when it comes to recruiting, I am not panicking. I think there's been plenty of goodwill to go around the USC program from hot recruiting in August to a great start in September. Yeah, this is a bump in the road. You lose to the defending national champions on the road. I know it's a different Michigan team, but still, I think things are going really well right now for USC and for Michigan. So, guys, talk to us. Let us know, what is your reaction to not just the game, but also recruiting. Let us know, comment section below.